Mid-season 10 patch is here with bigger balance changes than even the beginning of the season, especially with tanks. From the top, armor is changing from a 30% damage reduction to 5 flat damage reduction per projectile, up to a maximum of 50% damage reduction. This is actually how it used to work in Overwatch 1. Sojourn's railgun normally does 130 damage at full charge. On old armor, pre-patch, 30% damage reduction would bring it down to 91, but on this new armor change, a flat -5 is only going to bring it down to 125. Another example, Tracer's bullets normally deal 6 damage per bullet. On old armor, 30% damage reduction brought it down to 4.2 per bullet. On new armor, a flat -5 per bullet would actually be an insane 83% damage reduction because it would only do 1 damage per bullet, right? So they actually cap it at 50% damage reduction like this patch note says. So that means she now deals 3 damage per bullet on armor. So what does that mean for you? It means armor has much better resistances to rapid fire damage and shotgun based weapons like Tracer, Sombra, Reaper, Junker Queen, Diva, but has much weaker resistances to burst damage like Pharah, Junkrat, and Hanzo. The next big hero change is that the global out of combat HP regen passive is changing from 20 HP per second to 10 HP per second plus 5% of the maximum health. So on the low end, Tracer and Baby Diva are only regenning 18.75 HP per second instead of 20 HP per second. But on the high end for tanks, someone like Roadhog is gaining 50 HP per second. The devs comment that armor is being reverted to its original functionality to better resist rapid fire damage and shotgun type weapons. Out of combat health regeneration has been a positive but subtle addition to the game, but had a much smaller impact for tank heroes due to their massive health pools. So we're adjusting it to heal for a percentage of maximum health. Now, tanks have also had a few changes to their role passives this patch as well. They now have a 25% damage reduction against critical headshot damage. That's big. And their knockback resistance is going to be increased from 30% to 50%, which hopefully will prevent moments like this.
Time for the reckoning.
Oh my god! Dude, he's here! He's on the right side! Oh. What a play by their Lucio. But also like, damn, bruh. Devs comment that although armor health will be more effective in some of the more difficult matchups, it will also be losing its potency against the typically slower, high damage instances. To help reduce the feeling of tanks being taken out too quickly by high bursts of damage, the roll-wide passive now provides improved defense against critical headshot damage. Now, with the armor and headshot changes, a lot will change on your hero knowledge matchup, so a much smarter individual named Cactus Puppy, you all know him, has already made a spreadsheet for you. Find the hero you play, check the ability, and this column will be the raw damage that ability is supposed to do, the pre-patch damage, the new patch damage, the headshot multiplier if applicable, and the relative percentage change so you know if you're nerfed or buffed depending on the matchup. This is linked in the description, and now on to the actual hero changes. Junker Queen first, the commanding shout can actually now be activated while using other abilities like your Carnage. The cooldown of Commanding Shout is also going to be reduced from 14 to 12 seconds. The devs comment that Junker Queen being able to activate Commanding Shout while swinging her axe or during her ultimate ability will make it more responsive for when an additional burst of health or movement speed is needed. Sigma's Gravitic Flux is getting a huge buff where it no longer requires line of sight of the center of the effect. The devs comment that, similar to how Graviton Surge functions, Gravitic Flux no longer needs LOS to affect enemy targets in its area. There are a fair amount of counterplay options to deal with his ultimate, so we're making it more reliable to grab enemy targets within its area of effect. For Wrecking Ball, the Grappling Claw impact damage, the Fireball, is going to be increased from 50 to 60. The Pile Driver movement lockout duration for enemies is going to be increased from 0.5 to 0.75 seconds. The Minefield damage is going to be increased from 130 to 165, and the Explosion knockback is going to be increased from 5 meters to 10 meters. Devs comment that Wrecking Ball has been performing much better since his recent update, and these tuning changes will help his abilities feel more impactful. For Zarya, the Graviton Surge ultimate is getting a buff here, where the radius is going to be increased from 6 to 7 meters, so you can catch people at the tail end a little bit easier, and the duration is going to be increased from 3.5 to 4 seconds. Devs comment that we've been increasing the value of some tank ultimate abilities to account for the increased health pools, and it helps to make the decision of when to counter swap more of an interesting trade-off. Graviton Surge was still very useful to set up combos with other ultimate abilities, but we want to make sure it's powerful enough on its own. Junkrat buffs are here. The frag launcher impact damage is going to be increased from 40 to 45, which means the total damage is going to be increased from 120 to 125. The devs comment that Junkrat's weapon has great damage output, but is unreliable outside of close range due to its slow projectile speed, which is an intended drawback to its high output. The Season 9 health changes affected Junkrat more than most other heroes since it now requires one more shot to secure an elimination. We're increasing the damage on direct impacts to return to 2 direct hits for an elimination, without making his combo with Concussion Mine as deadly as before, since that one is much easier to execute. So you can 2-shot people with the primary fire, but you cannot use the primary fire plus Concussion Mine still. Echo's Duplicate is getting a small buff where the ultimate gain multiplier while transformed is going to be increased from 4 to 4.5 times the rate. The devs comment that while the main benefit of Duplicate is a second health pool and the utility of another hero's abilities, it was often too difficult to charge an ultimate in the Duplicate time limit, so we're increasing the bonus multiplier slightly. Hanzo's Dragon Strike, the speed of the dragon itself is going to be increased from 12 to 15 meters per second. The devs comment that the Dragon Strike ultimate hasn't been very effective outside of being used in a combo with other abilities that restrict enemy movement. So we're increasing its speed to help position it as less of a zoning tool and more likely to deal some damage. For Brigitte, the rally now resets your shield bash cooldown upon activation. So yes, you can shield bash, pop your ultimate, and shield bash again. The devs comment that resetting the shield bash cooldown on ultimate activation was too much potential burst damage for Brigitte when the average maximum health of everyone was lower before Season 9, but it's much more reasonable now that it won't be as lethal. All right, a couple of other things that's happening this mid-season patch. Overwatch 2 is collabing with Porsche. Yes, Porsche, not Porsche, it's German. They have a Diva skin and a Forest skin. Looks pretty neat. The competitive play updates, they have a Demotion protection modifier update where it's now been moved from below the rank progress bar into the bar itself to improve visibility when a player is in a demotion protection state. So when the demotion protection occurs, you will not be told when your progress is below that skill division's range. If you lose your demotion match, the skill rank adjustment will only show the adjustment from that match instead of the net total of that match and the adjustment of the previous match. So people hated it when they saw demotion and they get like minus 59% or something because it's adding it from the previous game. They're getting rid of that so it doesn't look as bad, but nothing is actually changing under the hood. There's a new modifier called Pressure that only applies to the far ends of the overall skill distribution. So in the high ends, like Champion, this modifier shows where you don't earn as much progress from winning a match or drop more progress for losing the match, because you're Champion, you should be winning more of your games than losing. And then for those who are on the very low end, like Bronze, this modifier will show where you're winning more for winning a match and losing less for losing a match. Grouping restrictions were hot fixed a few weeks ago, but here it is written out for you here. Grandmaster can now rank within 3 divisions to be considered a narrow group, and Champion can now group within 1 division to be considered a narrow group. And the final matchmaking update is that when a player is currently on a losing streak, the matchmaker will actually try to avoid putting that player on a team that is statistically calculated to have a lower chance of winning. This one may confuse a lot of people, but let the devs explain here. They're saying that loss streaks never feel good. Before each match, we make a prediction about which team will win the game based on the information we have about the players on both teams. This is how modifiers such as consolation, reversal, uphill battle, and expected, give or take, additional rank progress after each competitive play match. Most of these are not going to be much higher than 52, 48, 55, 45, and that's where you get the uphill battle reversal. That's what they're trying to say. Since most matches will have a team that has a slightly higher chance of winning, because again, you can never really calculate a perfect 50-50 even match. Everybody has a slight different MMR. Placing a player on the team with a higher chance who is currently on a losing streak is aimed at helping them have a fair chance of breaking that streak. And while this won't guarantee they'll win, because it obviously depends if no one tilts, no one leaves the game, and they're playing at their full potential, of course, it does provide a helping advantage. That's it for the patch. Let me know what you guys think. See you next time.